Welcome back to another episode of Palisade Radio. This is your host, Colin Cattell. Returning on the show this week, Brien Lundin of goldnewsletter.com, also organizer and owner of the New Orleans Conference. That's neworleansconference.com. Brien, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Colin.
I want to talk to you about the gold market. We're recording this on Wednesday, August 12th. A lot of interesting things going on. Of particular interest is the fact that the general equities are pulling back sharply, and yet gold is rallying, something that a lot of people would not expect to see happen, but maybe not that surprising considering how oversold the gold is right now, Brien?
Yeah, the gold market has been assaulted periodically and repeatedly by these speculative hedge funds, these high-frequency traders who have swamped, on occasion, have just come into the market in the wee hours of the night, the thinnest possible trading periods, and swamped the market with tons upon tons of gold sales within milliseconds, obviously intending to drive the price down through sell stops and get people to abandon their long positions and or add short positions to follow them downward, and they've been very successful. In particular, the most recent episode was on July 20th when they did it to gold, silver, and a number of base metals. Really, the whole commodity sector took it on the chin. But as I said, they've done this a number of times since 2013. The end result of all of this is that now, for the first time ever, the managed money sector of the paper gold market, the managed money category in the commitments of traders reports from the CFTC, this sector for the first time ever has a net short position on in gold. They almost always have a considerable long position. This is the first time that whole sector is net short. And what it's done is it's set the stage for a potentially explosive short covering rally in gold at any time if there is some type of a precipitating factor. We may be seeing that right now with the devaluation of the yuan by the Chinese.
Talk to me a little bit about the devaluation of the yuan. That's something that many people weren't expecting. The first move yesterday was just a couple percent, and then it slid another couple percent overnight. In talking to another one of my buddies that is deep into the sector, he said this is the real beginning of the currency war, and that is going to affect the gold price. Now that China, the biggest economy, has jumped in, it's going to have huge ramifications.
Yeah, I completely agree. Virtually every analyst I saw yesterday when the devaluation was announced expected it to be negative for gold and silver, as it was for all the other commodities. Every commodity, all the base metals were down over 3%, but gold and silver were actually up on the day. And it made perfect sense to me because what this does is it alerted the Chinese citizens and savers and investors that the yuan is going to be devalued. It wasn't much of it was 2% on the first day, but it was a shot across the bow that the currency is going down, is being devalued. And so they started to buy gold hand over fist. Typically, the Chinese are price-conscious, bargain-hunting buyers of the metal. They buy on dips, and they don't buy when the price has risen. The exception to that, of course, is when there's a clear trend for gold to go upward. They want to participate in that, and they buy early. So, we've seen over the last couple of years that the Chinese have been buying gold hand over fist. They're actually responsible at this point to the vast majority of all of the newly mined gold production in the world. They're soaking it up. They're buying it in China. And I think that what we're going to see now with this budding currency war and budding devaluation of the yuan, that the Chinese that their buying is just going to get more and more intense. You couple that with the outstanding short positions by Western speculators, and it's really set up for as I say, a potentially explosive rise in gold. And even as we speak, gold's up $15, and that runs counter to every other asset class out there right now.
There seems to be a consensus that gold needs to move for the gold stocks to move. And that might be right, but there's actually quite a bit of information that says while gold is pulled back, the mining stocks in a lot of ways are the cheapest that they have ever been. One chart that I'll point to is the bear market's analog chart put together by Jordan Roy Byrne at the Daily Gold, and it shows that the depth and time of this current bear market is matching the one from 1996 to 2000, which is, of course, the worst one, and we had a great bull market coming out of that. The Gold Bugs Index, the HUI, when compared to the gold price ratio, is cheaper than it was in 2000 by a lot now. What do you think about the mining stocks?
Well, the mining stocks, the gold stocks, as we all know, leverage the move in gold. They multiply the move in gold to the upside and, as we've seen, to the downside. So they overshot on the downside, and they've got a lot of room to make up. Now that gold has started to rebound on what we hope to be a more consistent and long-lasting rally, then they have a lot of room to make up, a lot of air between them and the gold price to make up, and then start multiplying and leveraging that rise in gold to the upside. So yeah, they overshot. It was an extraordinary bargain, especially that sell-off on July 20th that we saw in gold. There's a lot of evidence that represented the capitulation that we were waiting for in the gold market, in that we could have established that bottom and are now embarking on the next phase of a bull market.
I spoke to Rick Rule about capitulation a couple weeks ago, and he said that indeed the capitulation in the majors and mid-tiers was present. This could be the end. On the juniors, however, he said that he didn't experience a capitulation from what he's seen in the past. That doesn't necessarily mean there needs to be a capitulation, because these junior stocks are already down, sometimes up to 98%, but certainly around 90% as a whole. Do you think that the junior stocks are going to follow these majors up, or are they going to take a lot longer to start moving?
They're going to take longer. I don't think they'll necessarily take a lot longer. And even within the junior sector, you have to kind of define your terms. We have a number of junior companies that have proven world-class resources, multi-million ounce gold resources, for example, on which they have economic studies and are just sitting there ready for development. These companies are trading at the levels that the most speculative exploration stocks were selling for a few years ago. So they're going to move pretty quickly, I think. And I think in a lot of cases, once we get a more established and obvious uptrend in gold, you're going to see some of the majors come after these juniors that have these established deposits. So I think those juniors fitting in within the with proven resources, fitting within that category of junior developers, are going to move fairly quickly. The explorers are going to take a little bit longer, but I don't think it'll be a long time. I think that greed and fear of being left out, or fear of having other people make money and not you, will really spark the junior market more quickly than most people imagine.
On the note of juniors, Brian, there's a couple companies that I want to talk about. One of them's in the mining space. One of them is in the alternative energy space. Both of them supported by some of the big names in the sector. The first one's Arupa. What can you tell us about Arupa Minerals?
Well, I've known the president of Arupa, Paul Kuhn, for literally decades now, well before he went to Arupa, and before he met the financial team behind Arupa that were putting it together. And it's just a well-run company, from Paul through the financial backers and the big investors behind it. And it's always been a thematic play on getting good management, using the prospect developer business model, where you go in, you find prospects, and before you spend an awful lot of money out of the treasury exploring them, you joint venture them to companies that will do the heavy lifting and exploration and expend the funds. So they're employing that proven business model, but they're also employing it in an area that hasn't gotten a lot of attention or a lot of love in the resource markets, and that's essentially Europe, both Western and Eastern, Portugal, Kosovo, even Germany. And it surprises a lot of people at how mineral rich these areas are, and as I say, they've been largely overlooked. Over the last year or so, Avrupa has made the transition from a prospect generator to a company that actually has a couple, perhaps even three, depending on how you define it, discoveries under its belt. And it has joint venture partners developing and exploring these discoveries and generating really good exploration news. So it's a great company. It's a company that there's a lot of smart money behind, and I think it's one that resource investors would be well served to accumulate and put in their portfolio and hold for the long term. So I'm a shareholder, by the way.
Oh, that's great.
Well.
So that's Avrupa Minerals, AVU. And one good thing in this market and a necessary thing is to be able to raise money. They just closed on $1 million financing. So that's good. What about Natcore Technology?
Well, Natcore is a company that I cannot recommend in Gold Newsletter because I'm an insider. I'm the ultimate insider. I'm a co-founder of the company. I'm the chairman. I'm the largest single investor. But I do appreciate the opportunity when I can to talk to people about why I've devoted so much time, energy, and money to this company. And that's because I think it's really a transformational company. It has the potential to change the paradigm, not only for solar energy, but for energy generation worldwide. The company has a technology using lasers to process solar cells that will allow for ultra-high efficiency cell structures that have previously been not amenable for mass manufacture. Using lasers, we've found a way to take these complicated cell structures and make them easily and cost-effectively manufacturable. In effect, we'll be able to take ultra-high efficiency solar cells and bring them down to the cost level of the kinds of cells that, say, Solar City are throwing on the roofs right now. A key aspect of this is we think we'll be able to eliminate silver from solar cells, something that no one has really been able to do in a commercial way with low-cost cells. And we hope in the near future to be able to announce that we've been able to do that.
Very good. Brien, I want to talk to you about possibly the most important thing is that the New Orleans conference this year will be ending on Halloween night, and of course the parties and the late night drinks is where much of the business is done. Tell us about the New Orleans conference this year.
Well, we don't like to market it as a Halloween party, although that tends to be a big attraction for it this year. A lot of people are coming down because that's a bit of a bucket list event to see New Orleans French Quarter on Halloween night. But we've got a wonderful lineup of speakers this year because we know that this is where the seeds of tomorrow's fortunes are going to be made, at the bottom of a market that's just beginning to turn. So we focused on getting some of the world's top experts in this year. We've got Doug Cass, we've got Mark Faber, we've got Peter Schiff, Rick Rule, Doug Casey, Dennis Gartman. We've got some great geopolitical commentators in Dr. Charles Krauthammer and Mark Stein, who is just a brilliant writer. I don't know how many people have seen what he's been producing. They should really check it out. From top to bottom, we're bringing in dozens of the world's top experts, particularly in resource stocks and small cap technology stocks. So it's a wonderful opportunity to find the companies that are going to be tomorrow's winners. And I think the timing is absolutely perfect this year. I think the market's obviously, as we see right now, beginning to turn, and I think all of the long-term factors are pointing toward a new bull market in the precious metals.
Okay, so the New Orleans conference, October 28th to the 31st. Don't make the mistake of getting a flight out early in the morning on November 1st. Brien, that's NewOrleansConference.com and GoldNewsletter.com. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Great to be with you, Colin.
think you understand the junior mining sector and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
And the world is always going to need raw material. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, Troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen? Or are you too stupid?